thank you for joining us for another episode of Boom and Bust. I'm your host, Tony Clement. I'm here at the News Forum where all voices matter. As Boom and Bust continues to review Canada's trade relations with key countries, today we examine our relationship with Germany. Germany is Canada's largest export market in the European Union and our sixth largest trading partner globally. Here to discuss is Her Excellency Sabine Sparwasser. She is Germany's ambassador to Canada. Welcome to our program.
Thank you for inviting me.
No, it's a great pleasure. First of all, maybe you could give us your perspective on the Canada-Germany trade relationship.
Yeah. Germany and Canada have a great trade relationship, always have had it. And in the last 5 to 4 years, with the conclusion of the Comprehensive Economic and Trade Agreement, the EU-Canada Trade Agreement, the trade relationship has taken another leap. So I think it's gone up 27%. That was pre-COVID, so there has been a little dip in COVID. But I think it has gone up. I think it will go up significantly again. I just come out of a conference with German companies and entrepreneurs, and they were all very optimistic. They were talking about companies, for example, working on automation with Canada, having 50% growth this year alone. So I think there are many factors that play in favor of further growth, not least the fact that I think we see each other as extremely reliable and really like-minded partners.
And so, I was going to ask you, what do you attribute this accelerated growth? Is it just that the economies are very simpatico? Is that what it is?
Well, we each have what the other one doesn't have. So Germany is an extremely populated country with no natural resources, without coal, which we're getting out of. And Canada has vast natural resources. So that is a huge compatibility, and it's one that we will need to explore further, and we're working intensively in exploring further. For example, when it comes to energy, we have just this year actually concluded an energy partnership between Canada and Germany, because we will need to diversify where we get our energy from. And Canada has vast resources of energy, in particular also of green or cleaner energies.
That's interesting, because I guess one of the geopolitical issues that Germany is facing is, of course, Russia and the natural gas that it gets there, and President Putin not being shy about using that as a way to leverage his position. So this energy agreement, is it about natural gas, or what does it entail? Do you know?
The energy agreement that we have is an agreement on all sorts of energy. It's working together as countries on basically developing clean energies, but also on finding each other as partners and clients on energy. And we produce a lot of good technology. The Canadians have all sorts of resources. One of the key issues we're right now looking at is hydrogen. If we want to achieve net zero, we will have to find further clean energy sources. Well, hydrogen is going to be one of the key resources, and Canada is probably one of the countries with the biggest potential to producing hydrogen, in particular green hydrogen. And Germany will be one of the countries that will be the best market in the world for buying hydrogen. And so to work together on that, to work together on establishing the kind of production we need, and also on building the infrastructure that we will need in Germany to discharge it, etc. These are really big tasks, and we're starting on that, and we do want to work together closely with Canada on that. So this, as I say, the energy partnership covers all sorts of energy. but a particular focus right now is hydrogen.
Thank you for that. We're going to take a brief break because we do have to do that now and again. We'll be back with our guest, Canada's ambassador to Germany's ambassador to Canada. After this break, please stay with us. And welcome back to Boom and Bust. I'm your host, Tony Clement. I'm here with Her Excellency Sabine Sparwasser. She is Germany's ambassador to Canada. And I'd love to get a sense from you. You talked about this energy relationship before the break. What are some of the other potential opportunities, maybe some challenges in this trade relationship? What sorts of things are coming down the pipeline for the two countries?
Okay. Let me start with challenges, maybe. This is sort of more of a mindset. The trade relationship between Canada and Germany is excellent, but it could be a lot better. We're trying to convince Canadian entrepreneurs to make the most of the opportunities that the Comprehensive Economic and Trade Agreement offers, and to look more towards the European markets, in particular to Germany. So I think we all focus very much on our direct neighbors, and in Canada, obviously, the attraction of the United States as a market that you know very well is very strong. But I do believe that in the last few years, we've seen that we all need to diversify, and we need more clients in other countries. We also need partnerships with reliable countries we know we can trust when it comes to supplies. We've seen that also in the pandemic. We've seen it in other circumstances. So I do believe that we need to actually focus more on each other. And I keep saying that to my government and to the Canadian government. There are lots and lots of low-hanging fruit in our bilateral relationship, but we should focus on them. One of them, if I may just add on, one of the low-hanging fruit is really Canada's richness in minerals and natural resources. Everything we will need also for our energy transition. Canada has lots of it, and I'm trying to get everybody in Germany to focus on that.
You know, you raise a really interesting point because you mentioned off the top, obviously, the CETA agreement, the European and Canadian free trade agreement, basically, which involves dozens of countries on the European side. But maybe, is it hard for Canadian businesses to focus when that's such a comprehensive and wide-ranging treaty? Is part of your job as the ambassador to Canada to say, hey, you know we have CETA, but Germany, here are some of the value addeds that could be working if you're focusing in on Germany. Is that part of your job?
Oh, it's certainly part of my job to point towards the advantages that engagement, investment, or trading with Germany has. And I think we're very successful. I find, for example, on the investment front these days, a lot of also, like the pension funds, are interested in investing in Germany. Again, in a world in more turmoil, with more insecurities, Germany is seen as a very reliable partner, a good partner where you can invest into the infrastructure, but also in particular where you can invest into new technologies. And so that's one area we point to.
Yeah, and at the same time, Germany is a central hub of the European Union. So in a sense, it's a great way to get into the broader union is through Germany. Is that right?
That's right. And we're in a union without borders. So when you do business from Germany, you can do business within the EU without problems. It's also worth pointing out that there are hardly any customs left. As I said, I just come out of that call with business, and there is the German business in the lingerie production. And he said, basically, from day one of CETA, his costs, his customs disappeared. And so he has 50% price advantage, certainly.
No, please continue. Yes.
So, I mean, these things are worth pointing out. And I think the European Union, my colleagues from the EU Commission here in Ottawa, are doing a very good job. And the Canadian side, Canadian trade commissioners are doing a good job in trying to point out the opportunities. But there are plenty to be found. And it sounds more complicated than it is. It's actually not so complicated.
Okay, very good point. We're going to take another brief break, but we'll be back with Germany's ambassador to Canada, Sabine Sparwasser, after that break. So please stay with us. And we're back here at Boom and Bust. I'm your host, Tony Clement, here with Her Excellency Sabine Sparwasser. She is Germany's ambassador to Canada. Your Excellency, just obviously top of mind in the news these days is the COP26 climate change conference in Glasgow. A lot of effort to try to see the path to net zero economies. Love to get your point of view on how Germany's transition is going. You mentioned coal earlier, you mentioned the energy agreement. Maybe give us the picture on that.
Yeah, I think we're at a very, very important point on our energy transition. We're also at an important point where our government is about to change. So
yes,
we will probably have a new policy. And I think it's fair to say, I expect we will have an even more ambitious climate policy in a few weeks when the new government in Germany will have taken office. Germany has committed to being neutral by 2050, CO2 neutral by 2050. We've upped our ambition now to 2045 instead. So we've taken 5 years off. We also have committed to getting out of coal faster than originally anticipated. So this is going to demand a huge effort. And we will need, to electrify, we will need to diversify, we will need to save a lot of energy by investing hugely into energy efficient buildings. Transport, the buildings are sort of the big, and industry obviously are the big consumers. And for the industry, for in particularly heavy energy consuming industry, I've already mentioned hydrogen, and the transition to hydrogen is going to be the big step. But energy efficiency in buildings is going to be one of the areas in which Germany is going to invest hugely. We have fabulous technology in that. There are some villages in Germany that are totally off the grid and producing more energy by their buildings than they actually consume. But we need to scale this up, and we will need to invest in our infrastructure. The grid needs to be renovated. So, this is going to be a huge technological jump, but also it will need enormous investment.
You mentioned, thank you for that answer, and you mentioned obviously the change in government that's coming up, I guess in a few short weeks now after the national elections, and we'll see the end of Angela Merkel, who's been on the world stage for a decade and a half, I think, at this point. So that's a big change for Germany. And it's a kind of an interesting coalition because you've got the Socialist Party, you've got the Green Party, you've got the Free Democrats. And for those who don't know, the Free Democrats are a very pro-market, pro-liberalization party. So I'm curious as to know, I know you're in a bit of a situation because you are the ambassador, but maybe just let us in on, how, what other big economic changes do you expect to see with that kind of a coalition government?
Mm-hmm. Let me first say that in Canada, so many people have let us know the appreciation of Angela Merkel, whom they've considered such a stable international presence, and her legacy has received, I think, a lot of acclaim here. So thank you to Canada for that. And yes, it will be a big change. It's a big change not only because Angela Merkel, after 16 years, is leaving the helm of government. It's a big change also because for the first time, we have a three-way coalition. And it is a coalition that hasn't been together before, so untested. But in many ways, I think there is a lot actually of common ground. And my feeling is it could be a very beneficial coalition for Germany. The common ground is all three parties see climate change as one of the biggest challenges, or the biggest challenge we need to deal with. I think all three parties want Germany to modernize, in particular when it comes to our digitization, and will want to invest into that. So that, again, is another good point. I think all parties want to make Germany more competitive and help entrepreneurship in Germany to be easier. And all parties...
Hold that thought. We are going to have to take a brief commercial break. I apologize for interrupting, but hold that thought. We'll jump right back in after the break. Please stay with us. Yeah. And here we are back at Boom and Bust here at the News Forum with Her Excellency Sabine Sparwasser. She is Germany's ambassador to Canada. I'm sorry I had to cut you off there. You were talking about the new coalition government. Please continue with your thought.
Well, the last point I want to make is this is these are three parties who I think very much agree on our dedication to Europe, on our dedication to a transatlantic relationship, including definitely with Canada. So I think there's a lot of common ground. And in an ideal world, we will basically have a strong climate commitment, a strong European commitment, a strong social justice commitment, and at the same time pushing for modernization of our economy and more entrepreneurial ease in which to function.
I want to, before we run out of time, I do want to talk about something that is affecting the world and love to get an idea about how it's affecting Germany, which is, of course, the worldwide supply chain crisis. Has this been a topic that has been front of mind in Germany as well?
Well, I think it's been a big issue. It's still a big issue for the car industry, and in particular when it comes to semiconductors. This has been very damaging for our industry. When you look at the supply chain issues, people have started to think that they may have to supply differently and not do last-minute supplies anymore. And so I do believe that a lot of our companies by now are thinking a little harder where to get their supplies from, and maybe do more local, do more regional supplying, or do more supplying from partners where they're absolutely sure they can rely on.
Industrial production kind of dropped off a little bit. I don't know whether that was COVID or maybe it could be semiconductors and supply chain issues. Is this something that's observers in Germany are concerned about right now?
I don't think necessarily concerned about it. I think COVID has definitely affected our economy adversely. And depending right now, the numbers aren't good in Germany. It's upsetting, but it's true. And if COVID lingers with a fourth now wave and then maybe a fifth wave, we may see the growth rate, which is expected to be 5% or so in the next year, get lower again. This would be devastating. I think I think the first measure to take, and I do believe the new government will take it immediately, is to try and control COVID, and that will allow the economy to grow much better.
Well, we've got just over a minute left. Love to get a sense from you about where you see Canada-Germany economic relations going from here?
Yeah, I do foresee that we are going to focus much more on each other than we have in the past. I do believe we have a bright future ahead, in particular when it comes to new technologies, in particular when it comes to sustainability. There's so much more we can do together.
Well, and I guess the last question I can slip in, because we do have about half a minute left. Do you see, in a sense, that Canada has something unique to offer to Germany in this regard?
Well, as I say, Canada has all the vast natural resources, but also Canada has that experience with multiculturalism, which we find very attractive, very congenial. I think we want to work with Canada on that because it's something we admire.
Well, I do want to thank you. It's Her Excellency Sabine Sparwasser. She is Germany's ambassador to Canada. Really interesting discussion to drill down a little bit on Canada-Germany relations, and certainly wish you every success as you continue your role as ambassador here. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much, Mr. Clement, for inviting me.
Thank you. That was Germany's ambassador to Canada, Sabine Sparwasser, talking about all things Canada-Germany trade relationship, what's going on with Germany. Obviously, there's has been an election and a change of government, unlike here in Canada. So some new things to be considered there, as well as how our trade relationship is going to evolve, particularly in the energy sector. Very, very interesting. Thanks for joining us today. I thought it was a very interesting discussion.